He fought 1,000 battles, but human war stories left him speechless. The old warrior stood in the academy's great hall, his shadow long under the high arches. Korath of the Drax was a living legend. He had commanded fleets, dueled champions, and marched through 100 campaigns. His scars told stories older than some species' civilizations. Cadets hung on every word he spoke, hoping a fraction of his discipline would sink into their bones. But this day was different. Today, Korath was not teaching. He was listening. The academy had instituted a cultural exchange program, cadets sharing experiences to broaden interspecies understanding. The assignment was simple: describe a battle or conflict from your homeworld's history. Korath expected amusing tales of minor tribal disputes, or embellished skirmishes meant to impress him. He had not expected the human. Cadet Marcus Kane rose from his seat. He wasn't particularly imposing compared to the scaled Ozak or the feathered Corey, but he carried himself with a calm weight that drew the eye. "Permission to speak, sir?" Korath gave a curt nod. "Proceed." Marcus stepped to the center of the hall. He paused, as though selecting carefully from a vast arsenal of memories. "I'll tell you about the Battle of Stalingrad." The name meant nothing to the alien cadets, but the way Marcus said it made even the translator hum solemnly. He began. The hall filled with images painted by words, a frozen city under siege, soldiers fighting not for glory but survival, civilians starving while armies clashed in the rubble of shattered streets. Marcus's voice was steady, but the cadets shifted uncomfortably as he described men and women holding the line through hunger, disease, and endless bombardment. How combat was fought room by room, hand to hand, where every brick became a battleground. Thousands died each day, Marcus said quietly. They weren't warriors in the way you think. They were ordinary people forced to become warriors because surrender meant extinction. The hall was silent. Even the rustle of scales or feathers stilled. Korath's eyes narrowed. He had seen sieges. He had endured long campaigns. But something in the human's tale gnawed at him: the scale, the relentlessness, the sheer will to resist against hopeless odds. Marcus moved on to another story. "The Somme," he said. "World War I. He spoke of trenches filled with mud and corpses, of weeks of bombardment that turned the land into an unrecognizable wasteland. Of soldiers who went over the top knowing they had almost no chance of surviving the machine guns waiting for them. Why? A Corey cadet whispered. Why keep fighting if death was certain? Marcus's jaw tightened. Because sometimes, you don't get to choose. You fight because stopping means letting something worse take everything. Korath felt his throat rumble with unease. His people fought for conquest, for honor, for pride. This was different. Fighting not because victory was glorious, but because surrender was worse. The human wasn't finished. He told them of Vietnam, jungles swallowing soldiers whole, of ambushes and guerrilla tactics where the enemy could be anyone, anywhere. He told of Normandy, where men charged into seas turned red, climbing beaches under unrelenting fire simply because the world needed them to. Every tale was worse than the last. Yet Marcus did not embellish. He did not glorify. He told them plainly, like someone describing the weight he carried each day in silence. By the time he reached the modern conflicts, wars waged in deserts, cities, and mountains, many cadets had lowered their eyes, unable to meet his gaze. Korath, the warrior who had seen 1,000 battles, found his claws digging into his palms. He realized with a start that his mouth was dry. Finally, Marcus fell silent. He looked at the assembly, then at Korath. "You asked for a story," he said quietly. "But war isn't just stories for us. It's part of what shaped humanity. We've fought ourselves more than we've fought anyone else. And every time, the cost was beyond imagination." The silence stretched long. One Ozak cadet finally stammered, How many wars has your kind fought? Marcus's shoulders sagged. Too many. Big ones. Small ones. Some we don't even remember anymore. But we carry the scars. Korath rose slowly. His massive frame loomed over the hall, but his movements lacked their usual thunder. He had expected to hear tales of bravery he could dismiss or compare to his own triumphs. Instead, he found himself shaken. I have fought 1,000 battles, Korath said, his deep voice resonating. I thought I knew the face of war. But what I have heard today, he paused, struggling for words he never thought he'd need. This is something else. You humans, your wars are not contests of honor. They are storms that consume entire generations. And yet you endure. He turned to Marcus, his eyes hard yet respectful. I would face any warrior in combat without hesitation. But I pray I never face the necessity that breeds your kind of war. Marcus inclined his head, neither boastful nor ashamed. Neither do we. When the cadets were dismissed, the hall buzzed with uneasy conversation. They had come expecting to feel superior to the human, perhaps even mock his species' youth. Instead, they carried the weight of his words like stones in their chests. And Korath, the veteran of 1,000 battles, sat alone for a long time afterward, speechless. Because for the first time in centuries, he had realized that there existed warriors he would never envy. Warriors who fought not for conquest, but because their world never gave them another choice. Warriors who were human.